That could be because they're both synced together. So, Sal, I would like to call this meeting to order. This is the, I think it was the 51st, was it? Annual general meeting, 51st, 52nd, 50 something. Okay. Once you get to my age, numbers kind of go over. So I had a birthday yesterday. I'm now 66.
56.
I am 66. That's right.
Unbelievable.
I feel 90. So we've had a roll call. If there anybody who has a declaration of interest, a pecuniary interest, you can either declare it now or at any time during the meeting. And the next thing on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. We were circulating the agenda. I wonder if anybody has any additional changes. Okay, Ellen has motion to approve the agenda. I need a seconder, Roy. Okay, all those in favor? Great. All right, our first item is welcome ceremony and our land acknowledgement. Sally's going to do our land acknowledgement, and then she will explain the welcome ceremony that we have from the Indigenous First Nation. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. The Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority is charged by the Crown with the management of natural hazard and resource management in the watersheds of the Mississippi and Park rivers in an area draining to the Ottawa River. MVCA's jurisdiction includes land that is subject to treaties with Indigenous peoples. Treaty 27, the Williams Treaty, and the Crawford Purchases of 1783. Our jurisdiction is also the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care of and teachings about our earth and our relations. As we move together along the path of reconciliation, may we learn and once again honor those teachings and bring them into the work that we do here and this day. So thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Roberta and to Ross. They're going to lead us through an opening ceremony and smudging. And for those of you who want to participate in the smudging, we'll be going outside to just off the area there for the smudging at the yes.
Quay, Connie, Quay, in addition to cause, Mahino, Nido Dan, Bonashir, Algonquin, Nidam Taba, and Lake Clear on Dayon. So what I said was, hi, welcome. My spirit name is Red Tail Hawk Woman. My clan is, I almost said it back in Algonquin, Mahingan, Bull Clan. And I have the honor and pleasure of living in the Bonashir River watershed at Lake Clear, right by the Oglongo Mountains. On behalf of those Bonashir Algonquin ancestors, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to unceded traditional Algonquin land. And on behalf of my settler ancestors, I say thank you very much to the stewards of the water, the air, and the land that made it possible for us to meet, play, and shenanigate together. And let's thank all our ancestors, because without them, none of us would be here. So I'm just going to start with a drum song. I'm never too sure which one will happen. And then Ross is going to smudge those who wish outside. And then when we come back, those who have left, when we come back, I'm going to do a small water ceremony, because as we know, water is life, and none of us would be alive without water. And we're all extremely concerned and love our waters and our watersheds. So we'll see what song happens here. That was my indoor voice. So whoever wishes to be smudged, oh, wait, I'm supposed to tell you how we smudge. Right. So there is absolutely no right or wrong way. I'll say that right off the bat. What I'm going to do is walk through what I do and what I say in my mind when I'm smudging, but please feel free to follow your own inner guidance or whatever to think or stay inside yourself, whatever comes to mind. So normally in North America, we start at our head and go down to our feet. In South America and below the big divide, they often go from their feet up. And again, no way is right, no way is wrong. So with glasses, we often smudge them first. And then often we do our hands because we handle all kinds of, neat stuff. And so I'll bring the smudge above our heads, asking our spirit guides and ancestors to be with us, because we have a belief there somewhere above, and whatever you believe in works very well for you, of course. And then we honor Grandmother Moon, who was pink. Was that last night or the night before? Night before. That beautiful pink moon 2 nights ago, but it's still slightly waning, but it's still considered a full moon for a couple of days before and after, which I'll talk about in the water later. And then we honor the sun and we honor the star and the people and everything above us. And then we bring the smudge to our eyes, and you can say to yourself something like, may I see clearly, may I see with eyes of love and kindness and compassion. We bring the smudge to our ears, asking ourselves to really listen carefully, to listen to the undertones and what people really mean, and to listen without trying to think what we're going to say to respond, to really be present and really, really listen. And then bringing the smoke to our mouths, I'm often reminded I have 2 ears and 1 mouth. I'm supposed to listen twice as much as I speak. I'm still working on that one. But again, thinking about the words that come out of our mouths, when we were kids, we heard sticks and stones break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Well, I think that's completely backwards. When you have somebody sends a stinger and it really hurts, it penetrates your armor and sometimes hurts your heart. So remembering that, to be very cautious what we say. And sometimes things don't even need to be said. I had one elder try to train me by saying, if you cannot improve upon silence, don't. Still working on that one. Then we bring the smoke, or I do anyways, to our shoulders, because we carry lots of burdens and half aren't even ours. So when we're in a meeting together, let's just drop a lot of our so-called responsibilities, worries, and concerns, put them in the filing cabinet under miscellaneous, and then maybe pick them up on the way out if we think we need to. And then bringing the smoke to our hearts, if we so choose. I often say, may the ice in my heart be melted. And then guess what happens when you melt ice? It becomes water. And our body loves to form water from our eyes, which is a wonderful, wonderful relief. It's probably one of the most sacred things we can do as humans. And I invite everyone, when you are in public and you're either speaking or listening, and you start to cry, please let it happen. It's meant to be. And then it gives permission to the others in the room to be, authentic. And then bringing the smoke down, I like to stop at my hips, remembering that hips are where we carry our joy. So stop and remember, bring joy and happiness into our lives. And then bringing the smoke down our legs as we walk into our futures. I like to stop at my knees and do a really dorky pun. I like to say my knees remind me to meet my own needs and inviting community to help me too. It's my responsibility, but I'm also open to help and support. And then bringing the smoke right down our legs to the bottom of our feet. And this is the second of Roberta's really dorky puns. Connecting our SOUL as well as our SOLES to Mother Earth. Asking her for her medicine gifts, which include kind of obviously groundedness, but also fertility, creativity, and for me, most importantly, nurturance. So that's one way of doing a smudge ceremony, but feel free to do whatever you're comfortable with, including, yep, I'm cooked. And then when somebody else is smudging you, they often smudge your back. Because we carry stuff in our back, people who don't confront face on, they often send little stingers to our back. So it's great to release and let go of that stuff and ask Mother Earth to compost it for us. So that's my summary of the smudge ceremony. But feel free to do it your own way, of course.
So Roberta, you're gonna do the water ceremony
After, when we come back in the room. Thank you. Yes.
So those of us who want to get my food outside right now,
Perfect.
there's no obligation.
All by choice, always.
Okay. So no fire alarm.
It's an opportunity for you. Why not?
Maybe the smoke.
I need to.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. That's my worst. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah.
I don't keep protesting because I don't. Let's hold that for both sides.
Yeah, it just, I was trying to think of another part of this. Position in more than 2 years in the parliament. Yeah. 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 No.
You don't know for sure. I was about to say people are.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah. No, I just.
They either of the two ran the two teams. I think it would have won. But that's the other thing. Why do why does he want
You guys are important township. Never seen it there. It's those fine. Thank you.
Yeah. I just.
You guys, just.
I should have had somebody that friendly. So I was thinking through the last week. So that gives people a chance that they're still involved. But that company got.
Might be perceived that way. I don't know that we're gonna have an influx of rain out states out here. They're starting now. My daughters are older than this, right?
I think they're waiting to see what happens.
Yeah. Funding, like, funding is on cut. No, they have to make it, yeah. Once your funding's cut, your land doesn't. Then you gotta look. You're people that are dedicated, not their life work. 40 years, and all of a sudden now they because my dog didn't live anywhere. So I thought, hey, she's my niece, my children. Here. She was up there every day telling them what was wrong. So we got a pause now on piece of art. I think that's just what my new told me. I said, no, it's gonna have to last, I'm not buying another one. And you don't live that.
It's just making there, just a whole bunch of. I think it's
I'll do it. Yeah, in the media. I guess we could. Nice picture. I tell you right away. Yeah. Oh my God.
No, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's me wondering.
Yeah.
Right.
Would be definitely one of your rich guys. He's getting that.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you? What's that?
Those countries have built so that if I don't very so. Yeah.
So many years ago, it's something.
I didn't hear that.
Did you see salary?
No, but I.
I'll start.
Who was on, was it like Larry Coffee there?
So really good.
Oh, I'm for you.
Yeah.
They got 4 years. Jumps are now. before those.
I was going to Bill.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's some. Around that
He was on the scene.
I mean, he comes in from the other side.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I love these mostly like the fire and stuff. Real slow, but when that was so, like, so, and, one of them was really good. And, one episode started.
They want to definitely make careers for people. Yeah. There you go with the Canadian, let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, then you go on and they have done big things. I was so afraid to make. No. What do you do? Yeah. I remember the.
You want a few more?
Oh, it is. I don't agree. Because that's all it is.
Well.
I you know what I'm talking about, or fellow council member, I promise you God, yes, it's like that's all it is politics.
Oh, I agree. So.
He didn't know you were.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Well, and this is also like in the summer down. Of course, it's well down at this time here. So, I mean, that's good. Kind of. Yeah. Nothing comes to say. You know, like I so maybe the last. Just. Yeah, now I'm seeing.
Everything is on the up.
Yeah.
So, you realize they have lots of like. Yeah, it's crazy. That's right. Yeah.
You get them all.
Yeah. It's not, we don't have to. Is that what it is? Because now they're buying more. Although they got their own.
Well, especially for.
I get it. I think that
I don't think so. It's a big one.
Okay, but not the for his name.
That's, again, it's just like.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so much.
I never think it's really rest in the airport and they stuff it up.
Oh, that's something about
Every
this,
day.
place you might go.
Oh,
There was more.
Is it even worth it?
And then when you have it-
Is it if you look at when you think it lands out. And there's no one that's faith. So you a bit like and yeah. It's more, yeah.
And it was all reason or free choice.
That's right.
So.
Yeah.
No, that's.
What's the road? That's the road.
Oh, is that right?
No.
Well, there's range one.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well. All the brain. That's not yet.
No, there was no. Oh, yeah. But.
Well, I want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was very, very careful. I like.
We had.
Okay, you wanna get, yeah. It's change.
Okay, everybody, I'd like to bring you all back in.
Yeah.
We're doing the water ceremony. I'd like to comment, you're singing. It sounded like there were like 3 people singing with you. How do you do that?
Those are my ancestors. For real, I call them then.
Okay, it was really. It was really different, like I'm used to people singing, kind of choir. Places and, but this was like one person sort of matching like a duet. It was weird. Great job.
Yeah, if I sang by myself, you would all leave the room. So I just wanted to mention for the ceremony, and it isn't the big razzle dazzle thing, right? So I use copper because it's a very protective, I'll say substance, and it holds the integrity of the water. So what I have done is I actually, and I'll put it back in here, I have put the water out one night before the full moon, the night of the full moon, and the night after the full moon, but I leave it out the whole time. And if a bird comes and sits it, well, that's fine. So what is happening according to our belief system and my interpretation of our belief system is the whole time the moon is loving it and actually impacting each and every molecule. If you've ever heard of Dr. Masuto in Japan, he did some studies on what happens to water when you send love to it, when you send anger to it, when you say you dirty to it, the molecules actually change. They go all dark and I spilled it again. That's okay. Go all weird, but when you put love in it, everything is symmetrical. So it's really, really cool, the impact we have on water. All of our intentions are taken into the water itself. And so when Grandmother Moon is putting her loving moonbeams in it, it's very sacred water. And I'm not gonna say everyone takes fifth because we're post-COVID and we can't do that anymore. But perhaps if we're invited back next year, I'll put more out and then bring more containers and we can each have some moon water inside ourselves, which is really cool. But again, intention is everything. So if you have the intention that the wonderfulness of this moon water enters your being, that will happen. Actually, kind of, if you don't believe it or not even. Intentions are amazing, absolutely amazing. And as we know, water is sacred. We know we can't live without it. Our bodies are, it's debatable whether it's 78% or 82 or whatever it is percent of water. And we know what happens when we don't drink water. We become dehydrated and we actually go loopy and faint die. Dramatist. And the same thing with our environment, as you all are very, very aware and are very dedicated to the sacredness of water. So I'll stop talking about it. And I'm going to sing a water song. So this one is the Algonquin water song. And if I hadn't been coordinated, but for some reason I misallocated my 2 water sticks, but it's perfectly fine to adapt. So there's wood here and wood here. So I'll sing the water song with doing that instead of tapping my 2 water sticks together as I had done last year. So as many of our songs, they're simply vocables. They have, in some cases, there are words and meanings. Actually, the water song does have words and meaning. And it basically is saying, we love you, water. Basically. Yeah. Pretty much. So here we go. I just want to quickly say, there's another, for me, exercise of patience. Before I used to sing it with the 4 beats in between. This one. Slow down, be intentional. So that's one thing one of many things the water song has taught me. Slow down, be intentional, be present. G. McGrich, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, we really appreciate that, and you were able to do it again. I don't under, there's a like a resonance or a. Hmm?
Your acoustics are really good too.
Okay. Well, that was pretty good. All right. So we had the adoption gem, which we've already done. Oh, sorry.
No, yes, we do. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't quite do it the way it was written.
Okay.
Okay, shall we?
Okay.
This is the last one. Excuse me. After every meeting, Sally was giving me debriefs, Paul. Yeah. You're shaking your head, no. Oh, God, Lord. Resolved that the minutes of the board of director meeting held March 10th, 2025 be received and approved as printed. Okay, so that was circulated. Could I get someone to move that? Okay, moved by Jeff, seconded by Mary Lou. All in favor? Carried. So we have the receipt of the Finance and Administration Advisory Committee meetings on April 4th, 2025, and the Executive Committee meeting on October 25th, 2025. Okay, and the employee presentation of 2024 Planning Act, that information was all provided for information purposes. And Diane is going to present, that's the employee presentation, correct? Diane's going to do the employee presentation.
Alongside Mercedes.
Okay,
Are we all set? Yeah. This is a brief presentation on the planning component of the planning and regulations program here. Mercedes and I both work on processing permits as well, but this is just tailored towards planning. So the review of the municipal planning applications. So as far as the program objectives, primary objective is protecting people on public interest and property from natural hazards such as flooding, high steep slopes, that sort of thing, unstable soils. We don't want to aggravate the hazard any more than it may already be, or impact wetlands. In order to do that, we try to direct development away from these hazards. That's for the primary objective. If we can't do that, the second option is to mitigate impact. So if you're dealing with a floodplain, we put in place floodproofing measures as one example. And we work very closely with municipalities and work with landowners to try to achieve that. Okay, so as we know, water resource planning and management is estimated for several watershed and sub-watershed level. We have an advisory role for circulated planning applications to review for conformity to the provincial planning statement and provincial guidelines in order to make an effort to mitigate impacts. We review for water quantity control as well as concerns relating to natural hazards. So like Diane said, flooding, erosion, high steep slopes, and advise municipalities that MVCA is required to issue a permit to address that hazard. Regulations under the Planning Act require the circulation of two conservation authorities to review and comment on matters of provincial interest arising from various planning applications such as minor variances, severances. And this slide just outlines, based on type of application and municipality, it breaks it out just the volume of municipal planning applications that we've received in 2024. So you can see there's the whole gamut of application types here, from severances, zoning bylaws to subdivisions, site plans and minor variances. Just to kind of highlight here, especially when it comes to subdivisions, you can see there's only 2 new ones in 2024. But that's not to mention numerous subdivisions that are ongoing, upwards of 20 that we have reviewed, as many upwards of 100 technical review submissions that we are heavily involved in alongside the engineering team. And there was a total of 328 new applications. There was a spike, as we all know, 2021, that has leveled off the last while for some municipalities, but not for all of them. It's pretty consistent, particularly in the west, which is what the area that I deal in. The volume of applications we're receiving in the state pretty constant. So this slide just takes that matrix and plots it onto a map. So it is all the planning applications received in 2024, plotted through a watershed. So some areas that I would want to highlight are Carson Place, a lot of applications within Mississippi Mills area, particularly on that, as well as we continue to see a lot of planning applications from the city, specifically through Canal North and Canal West area. So, as a summary of this 2024 things to note, as you are all aware, I'm going to highlight again the change in the regulation for conservation authorities. Some highlights that carry forward while that is our regulation that carry forward into planning are the definition of a water course that was updated through that to provide some more specificity to a defined channel having a bed and banks or side in which flow of water regularly or continuously occurs, as well, and just again the reduction of the regulation limit around provincial significant wetland challenges that will not be in meters up to the as well, the provincial planning statement was updated in October 2024. A planning highlight that applications that we would be involved in relating to that is the ability for private landowners to request lands be added to the urban boundary without the holistic municipal official plan amendment. And then lastly, a change that also affects us is Bill 185 change the mandatory pre-consultation that municipalities are required to undertake the planning application and move that to a voluntary which allows developers to potentially just apply without pre-consulting with the conservation authority or municipalities for planning applications. And we always just want to highlight the importance of pre-consultation with respect to natural hazards and DA matters. 2024 inquiries, we also get a lot of inquiries, which you can see 468 last year. But those are new inquiries that involves people that are just pre-consulting for a possible future build that they're planning. You can go back and forth with those individuals many times with many versions of their plan in order to arrive at something that we can both agree on and come to as happy a place as we both can. So there's a lot of that takes place prior to getting to the formal submission of the application. And then the next section is just to do with to highlight some of the more complex and challenging reviews that we undertook in 2024. Yeah, we'll speak to those. So for myself, a lot of that revolves around the Canal North urban expansion area and the build out of those subdivisions down, as well as development along the Park River corridor. You'll notice, if you remember from the numbers, there was a lot of activity in Carlton Place and Mississippi Mills with regards, actually it wasn't on that table, but with regards to subdivisions and resubmissions. Not new applications per se, but with resubmissions of technical documents. It involved about 13 or 14 subdivisions brought up here in those two areas. There was continued review of 2 pits and quarry applications. Those are always very technically based and somewhat complicated finance to deal with. So there was one in Lanark Highlands, the Highland Pit, that many of you will be aware of. And there was another one in Central Frontenac, Robertson Quarry that, undertook some additional review last year. A couple of new initiatives that were finalized last year was the update floodplain mapping along the Park River. And the other thing that we did was develop a safe access mapping for Mississippi Lake. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Bev?
The safe mapping for Mississippi Lake. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, the staff went around and did some ground truthing exercises with transit equipment and GPS equipment to assess the elevation of various roads of potential concern within the area that could be below safe access standards. So anything that it has the potential of having more than a foot of flood water on it, during the 100-year flood event, is flagged as potential concern. So the authority went around and went to some of those key spots and created some floodplain, some mapping off of that kind of highlighted which areas were. And it was made available to the road associations, I believe.
Are the residents who live in those areas aware of it?
I believe so. I was involved in that component of the project, but
So it was shared with the Lake Association and they shared it with the membership. We've also shared with your 3 municipal public works offices and CAOs to make sure that for emergency services purposes, that they're aware of what segments of which roads are vulnerable to 37 meters of flooding, because it also poses a risk to your emergency response. So I can't guarantee that every resident who lives on a safe, unsafe access road is aware of it, but it's certainly been talked about for several years. And when we published it, I think word got out that it was available on our websites, and I think it's been received well. We haven't had any complaints since it was published.
thank you. I just wanted to note that that's more than a foot of flooding, so you could have up to 8 foot of flooding, and still is considered safe access. So just to kind of be aware that it's more than a foot, that's when it's triggered as potential fires.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, Richard.
What was, I didn't quite catch on the expansion of the community development areas, what the role of the conservation authority is now.
So it still is the same as at the Milton Creek, so focusing on natural hazards, flooding, corrosion, high steep slopes, and then from a stormwater perspective, we're looking at water.
So what was the change? You said there was a change.
Just through the new provincial planning statement allows for developers or landowners to apply to
Right.
have their land.
But you would still have to comment.
We're,
on-
yeah, we would still be involved in that. It's just a change from what was the process.
Right.
So our goal is the same.
Okay.
I have one final question. It's more, I was looking at your table there and you were talking about Mississippi and Carlton Place, but Lanark Islands looks like it's like 38 severances.
Yeah,
Is that an impact on sort of the eastern edge where people are now buying there to commute to Ottawa, or is it something else, or is it?
there always has been a lot of severance in the Lanark Islands. And generally we see that each year, that the metrics for severance is get higher in Lanark Islands. The comment about there being a lot of activity in Mississippi Mills and Carlton Place was directed around subdivision applications and the review of resubmissions. That didn't appear in that table. Those numbers don't get captured in that table.
Okay,
So yeah, that was just a different point later on.
okay, appreciate it. Thank you. That was very well done presentation,
Thank you.
very informative. Okay, the watershed outlook report. Jennifer,
Oh.
can you tell us about all the smashed dogs?
Okay, so, the warm temperatures and rainfall recorded on March 15th and 16th triggered the spring freshet. And brought levels in some parts of the watershed to springtime conditions, quite quickly. Localized flooding was seen in smaller, water courses such as the Carp and Indian rivers. Along with low-lying areas, creeks and ditches were also, flooding at that time. So MVCA issued a flood alert on March 14th, followed by a flood watch on March 27th. We utilize, the lakes in the upper part of the watershed to minimize, downstream flooding, particularly at the bottleneck of the system, which is Dalhousie Lake. The system peaked within a week, on March 22nd at a flow of 132 CMS. Majority of the snowpack throughout the watershed was depleted at that time, especially in the lower portion of the watershed. The following weekend, and I do have to say that that is quite a quick freshet to be kind of have that massive snow melt in a week, and have it peak is very quick. And you can see here in our rain graphs, January, we had well below average rainfall. February, slightly above average. March, we had very much so above average, and then of course, April, we are already hitting above average rain amounts, and we're still mid-April, so we're definitely going to see higher than normal precipitation for April as well. So the following weekend, the watershed was hit with a massive snow/ice/rain event, adding an additional 10 to 15 centimeters of snow, and with an additional 20 millimeters of rain to the landscape. Although the runoff amounts during this time were low, mainly because of the cooler temperatures at the time, but it did, the snow left on the ground remained, became saturated and bright. So that rain with the snow, it just turned the snow into very, very bright, saturated, ready to go at any point. And then a few days later, on April 3rd, we saw an overnight rainfall reaching 60 millimeters in the upper watershed of rain, followed by a daytime high temperature of 17 degrees Celsius. So that, and plus combined with the remaining snowpack that was still in the bush areas and everything else in the other portion of the watershed. So these conditions produced a massive release of runoff, causing flows and levels to increase rapidly, using up the rest of the storage capacity that we had left in our upper lakes. And on April 5th, MVCA, right here. So on April 5th, MVCA issued a flood warning statement for the watershed, as flood thresholds were reached on the upper lakes, Shawnee and Nicenaw, as well as the Clyde River at Lanark. Water management and operation staff worked very, very hard to mitigate flooding and operated dams strategically to lessen the impacts of across the watershed. The system eventually peaked on April 10th at a flow of 161 CMS. MVCA terminated the flood warning on April 11th, but a flood watch is still in effect as the system remains full and is at risk of any significant rain events. So the current management strategies include releasing the excess water in the upper watershed over the next couple of weeks, and then to maintain stable levels and flows over the month to meet the requirements for fisheries, so that's walleye and bass, and wildlife as nesting loons and ducks, and while ensuring summer levels are set for the long weekend in May. And you can see here on the graph, I have a comparison to the other years, so you can kind of get a comparison of what we saw this year compared to previous years. So the green The green line is 2019. So that's an extreme event that occurred. The blue line was last year's, so it's very much a below average peak, very early below average peak. And then the yellow line is 2023, so that was the last time we had a flood warning, on our river, and our watershed. And as you can see, we didn't get the full impact as 2023, but, we did see the similar where we had initial snow melts peak and then an additional kind of rain event peak. And you can see, one thing why, the two peaks are different, why, 2023 had an initial, larger peak than the second peak, was because after the first peak, it was enough time lag for that system to get down in time before the second kind of peak hit. Whereas this year, we weren't able to get down in time before the second kind of the rain event hit. So that's why we were a little bit higher in the second peak, just because we didn't have that enough time for the system to react to that first. Okay, the Ottawa River. This is just starting its main freshet. Water levels and flows on the main stem of the river have begun to increase due to snow melt and over in the northern part of the basin. While there's still currently no significant flooding indicators, it's still too early to forecast river peaks conditions, which remain dependent on snow melt and rainfall duration and timing. So it would be fully depending on how slow that snow melt comes from up in the northern part of the watershed, and if any additional rain impacts. The good thing is, majority of the lower systems have all peaked and all the snow is away, which didn't happen in 2019. Which is why you see a more significant peak in 2019, as it was happening. The northern area was releasing at the same time as we were dealing with flooding down here, which caused more significant flooding. So the good thing is, this is pretty much done, and everything's kind of coming back down, and then the northern parts. So everything looks good and average. And there's no flooding concerns right now, unless we get, again, a significant events happen in the next couple weeks. Any questions?
Questions, folks?
Sorry, I couldn't hear if you would acknowledge me or not, but I think so.
Okay, yeah, it's hard to see. Yes, Parker, and then there we go.
Just wanted to see, I know this isn't in your jurisdiction, but when you look at forecasts and what may be coming, what's happening in the northern part of the reservoir now in terms of snowpack, water content in the snowpack, and where are they at in the melt or their freshet? Has it started in the northern part of the watershed as well?
They have indicated that snow melt has begun, and water levels are increasing in the northern portion of the watershed. I'm not sure exactly what the current snowpack is up there. I think with the few events that they've had currently, it's changed from what the data that is not current anymore. So I haven't got the updated version of what's exactly on the ground. But going into that kind of before we had kind of multiple events and the ice and the rain, we had an average snowpack in the northern portion of the watershed. So depending on how much of it's melted and how much of it's accumulated on top of what they had before, I'm not sure exactly what they have at the moment.
And then do you have a sense of when, because generally there's two peaks, as you mentioned, like we get our snow melt through the system. On years when that happens simultaneously is sometimes a flood risk. Do you have a sense of the timing there where we might see that? Are we looking at like early May, mid-May? What's your sense of when we might see that come through?
The peak will definitely not happen for probably another 2 weeks.
Okay.
I would assume it would take another 2 weeks before we see an issue.
Thank you, Chair.
Mary Louise, had a question?
Yes, I just wanted to ask for confirmation. Unless we have a very rare and severe storm,
Not rare.
well, rare in its extremity, we're gonna be really okay this year. It won't be huge. Like,
Right now, yeah. So right now, the way the system is right now, the upper lakes have peaked and are coming down. We are slowly putting logs back in there, being very cautious to make sure we leave enough room for any kind of rain. But at the same time, Crotch Lake, High Falls, and Dalhousie are very much at their peak. Like we're trying to keep a thin line there, making sure it doesn't come up anymore. We're trying to keep everything stable. So until we can get the upper portion of the watershed kind of coming down and under control, that's going to cut flows off the crotch, which is going to in turn make its way down the system. Mississippi Lake is doing very well because Lamb and Fall River, so Clyde River and Fall River have been dropping very steadily. So that's kind of helping flows into Mississippi. So right now, for the next week, it's very critical that we don't get any significant rain. Just until we get the system under control and everything down. So and basically give us enough room that we can handle those extreme events. But again, depending on what kind of significant rainfall you're talking about, if we get 150 mils of rain, there's no way we're going to be able to handle that much. So, but we're not going to. So it all depends on what we actually get, but everything's looking good so far. The majority of the snow gone. There's still some snow left, so we will see some. Hopefully, it'll come melt in a slow manner and not in a very quick, fast manner. And then we'll be able to pass it through the system. It's the reason why we are dealing with such high water recently is because it all came at once. We had the snow melt, the rain, and then the extra snow, and just all came. We just couldn't handle all it. If it came within like a few weeks, it would have been easy to pass it through the system, but it was just the fact that we got inundated all at once.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. You've explained as well. Okay. So, we now have the auditor report that will be presented by District Clerk. And I'm gonna let you take it away.
you just about to read on the screen, you just print it to the actual statement. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Donna Rupert, audit partner at here in Providence. I have Adriana Martin with me, she's the senior auditor who did the bulk of the work on the file, and so I have her with me today. At a high level, I'm going to try and go 50,000 feet about what an audit is, what the final conclusions are, and then just quickly explain the statements to you. Any questions, feel free. So in terms of our audit approach, so our job as auditors is not to make the statement, our job is to express an opinion on those statements. So we follow Canadian auditing standards, which is designed to obtain reasonable, not absolute assurance. And so we look at a risk assessment based on our understanding of the entity with conversations with family and safety, and we go in great detail through all of that. And develop a risk assessment for those financials from a financial perspective. So our key areas, that we focused on in the audit were three things primarily. Asset retirement obligation, which I'm going to talk about in a few slides. It was a new standard that came in 2023. Correct allocation of revenue, because there's lots of different funding from different sources, and just making sure that revenue is allocated appropriately. And then expenses and payroll. So in organizations that receive funding, we consider there to be an inherent bias to spend that money. And so we take a closer look at expenses, make sure the organization is spending that money appropriately in line with the agreement and those types of things. So when I say we give not absolute assurance, we use this concept called materiality. And so effectively, that's our professional judgment of what would be significant to a user of the financial statements. And so standard practice is to base that on expenses, a percentage of expenses. So we did that this year, which is the same as was done last year by the previous auditor. So we set our materiality at $95,000 this year, and so that's what we did. So then on the next slide, I'm going to jump right into kind of our key findings. And then we'll walk through the numbers quickly. So we didn't find any significant internal control or other matters to address. The organization is in great shape, the financials are in great shape, the policies, the processes, all of that is in great shape. We did find two minor misstatements that we identified, and we have not in management has chosen not to adjust for. So they are not material, they're not close to material, and the impact on the financial statements as a whole is not significant. So we record those as unadjusted misstatements. So one was related to accrued interest. The timing of the payment on the mortgage for the building is the beginning of the month, so there should be about $10,000 of accrued interest, but it should have been there last year as well, and so the two just don't set. Stacy budgets on a cash basis, and so that we just kind of leave as okay. And then the other one was there were two assets that were purchased by the foundation in 2023 that are Conservation Authority assets that hadn't been recorded in 2023, but were recorded in 2024. Again, to go back and address them in 2023 and change all the numbers in the budget figures, it just wasn't worth it. It was an Osprey platform for 17,000 and an Eco Tracker out for 24,000. So we recorded those as in the wrong period, and everything will be in line by the end of the year, and we'll move on with that. So then our conclusion. So our report does include a qualified opinion. So what this means is we're saying the financial statements are good, but one little thing. So the one little thing is that asset retirement obligation that I spoke about a few minutes ago. So the amount we reported, management has reported, is $61,933. And that's an estimate that Stacy and her team made last year. Now, an asset retirement obligation is a liability to remediate things like asbestos, lead paint, those types of things in older buildings. Stacy, unfortunately, is not an expert in remediating asbestos, and neither am I. And so we took the position that we don't have the reliance on an expert, and neither of us were experts. So we are going to say that we were not able to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence for these statements for 2024. Now, my understanding is that it is in the budget and in the plan for 2025 to have those assessments done. So my expectation is that this number will change next year and that this qualification will be over next year. So that is one little thing that we're just saying we couldn't get comfortable around with auditors, just have one little estimate. Any questions on that?
Roy, question. I just don't understand where the $61,000 came from. Maybe you could explain it. I understand about asbestos and lead paint.
Yeah.
But how do you come up with the number of 61,000?
I did some research based on the square footage of the buildings and what the estimated cost per square foot to repair.
But that's only the buildings we know that have asbestos and lead. So in 2 years from now, we could have another.
So the issue with asset retirement obligations, and you'll see, if you look at provincial financial statements, they're qualified across the board because there's two issues. There's one, the measurement of it, the valuation of it, and the other one is the completeness of it. Did we get every single building or every single asbestos? Right? So it's actually a really complicated standard to implement.
So ARO stands for.
Asset retirement.
So why is it retirement? We're not retiring the building, we're just remediating.
You have a legal obligation to remediate the asbestos before you can dispose of that building or sell it. Public sector accounting standards put this standard in for 2023.
All right, thank
Richard has a question.
you. I just comment to Roy, that the plan is that we're hiring a consultant to do it next year, so you know, every municipality has to do this.
Okay, Meredith?
One very short question. If you're going to pull the building down to retire,
You still have to safely abate the asbestos before you can do so.
okay.
My understanding, I think
Hey, I had to enforce that regulation for years.
Okay, so high level, that's kind of our process and our conclusions. I'm just gonna really quickly walk you through a couple of statements. So I'm gonna start with the statement of cash flows because I think this is the most valuable statement in terms of where did your cash come from, where did the authority's cash come from, and where was it spent? So at the top portion is operating activity. So the core operations of the authority have generated $569,000 of cash flow. And then we spent some money. So on capital activities, there was spending of $657,000. Financing activities, there was $175,000 spent on repaying long-term debt. And then investing activities, so that money was invested in short-term for $415,000. So overall, our cash has decreased by $678,000. Now that's cash in the bank, not investments, GICs, those types of things. So then the next statement is a statement of operations and accumulated surplus. So this is operations for the year. Total revenue by different sources, different categories, and the municipal budget by categories, grant revenue, those types of things. And then the core expenses of the operation of the organization, again, by category. There are detailed schedules in the financial statements that were circulated. And so that gives you surplus before capital activity, and then we break down capital activities under that. So there's the municipal levy related to capital activities, as well as amortization, which is a non-cash item, that's just accounting. And then interest payments on long-term debt, which gets you down to your annual surplus for the year, $324,000. So that gets added to the accumulated surplus from last year of 7.1 million to give you accumulated surplus at the end of the year of 7.5. So then the next statement here is a statement of financial position. And this is a snapshot at a point in time. So this is just as of December 31st. So you have your financial assets, which are cash, investments, accounts receivable, less your financial liabilities. Which are obligations that will result in the outlay of cash in the future. And so financial assets minus financial liabilities gives you what's called net financial debt, which just indicates that there are more financial liabilities currently than there are assets. But then you go down to the next section and all the non-financial assets are there. So that's where all your intangible assets are and your capital assets are, which are $8.3 million, which then you get to the same accumulated surplus thing. It kind of asset people's liabilities plus owner's equity in kind of corporate terms, shown in a different way because public sector accounting is different. Is that clear enough to everyone? Okay. And then the last statement I'll show you is just the annual surplus. So this is a statement of changes in net debt. So that change in net financial debt, it takes your annual surplus. We're taking out all of the non-cash items and non-financial asset items to kind of get to that change in net financial debt that was shown on the statement of financial position. And so those are the four key statements that are required to be shown under public sector accounting standards. So then finalization, we'll finalize today. You will approve these statements today. Stacy has all the documents that will need signatures. And then the only other thing I need to confirm, which I'll confirm with Stacy, is that there's been no events up to today that would have impacted the financial statement. Those would be things like the building burned down or something massive that we own flooded, those types of things. So I can see the building's still standing and Stacy and I will have a quick exchange after the meeting's over and everything's signed. And then will be signed and approved for 2024.
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
Questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to, thank you very much. I'm gonna start our week motion here. Be it resolved, the board of directors approve the 2024 audited financial statements and directed to be posted and distributed in accordance with section 38 of Conservation Authority Act, and received and authorized signing of the auditors. Do I have someone to move that? Moved by Jeannie, seconded by Taylor. All those in favor? Okay. Can I get our raised hands again? Okay, there we go. Now we got it. Thank you, Artie. Thank you very much. And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
And
We're gonna
I
head
think
out.
we're looking forward
If
to.
there are any follow-up questions, Stacy, I'm gonna.
Yep.
Okay, thank you guys, take care.
Okay, next item is number 7, which is the financial update year to date. Started on December 31st. And Stacy will provide that for information.
I just wanted to highlight, because I presented the year unaudited in March, and this is just what the changes are from what I presented before to now. So a couple of the key ones, do you know that the Finance and Admin Committee asked me to change my presentation, which is why things are in red in the report, and it's really just the table 1, 2, 3. They asked for a column to put in that showed what the numbers were that I presented last month. You can usually see the difference. The keys were the City of Ottawa floodplain mapping project. Revenue hadn't been picked up in 2024. That's been added. And purchase order number from the city, so we're billing it, so we're still with that. There's also we had a rebate from WSIB. In 2023, they declared that they have a surplus, so they're giving us money back. We didn't find out about that till early March, so, but it was in time to add it for the audit statement. So that was about $45,000. And as mentioned in the audit presentation on the asset side, adding in the Osprey Tower and the eco tracker, which the foundation had paid for. Those got added, and we were just really that flipped it to being reporting the assets in the authority and recognizing it as a donation or contribution from the foundation. The other element was the Kashwapanak Lake Dam. Any assets with that won't be amortized until the dam is functional. So between now and probably the next 3 or 4 years, it will go as work in progress and won't be amortized until it's complete. The reserves also got updated, are corrected. Any excess surplus went to the water control structure reserve. And you'll note that went from being 25% of its target to with the new addition to it, it's up to 47%. So a big amount went into there. The 2 recommendations out of the audit were the asset retirement obligation, looking at that, and we have it in the capital plan for this year to do building condition assessments. And the other was implementing some additional control on the payroll. So just an additional set of eyes looking at the payroll. Anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Steve? Thank you very much. And now we're move on to the section with all the hearing for. Okay, so first off, as my final thing that I get to do, I just want to say what an honor it's been to work with this particular board and you people in the last year, the last 2 years. I cannot stress how much I have learned from the people at the Conservation Authority and to fellow board members throughout this past 2 years. And it has been a wonderful, as I say, it's been a great run. Thank you so much. So, the motion is resolved that Sally McIntyre be appointed as chair for the administration and election of board of directors for 2025. That's gonna be 25 through 26, right? Yeah, 25 to 26. Do I have someone to motion on it? Dina and Mary Lou. So, all those in favor? I should just make you put your hands up again, just for the hell of it. Carry. Okay, I turn the chair over to you, so.
Okay, so I declare the positions of chair and vice chair of the board of directors now vacant. And I will receive any nominations for the chair. Somebody would like to nominate somebody to act as the chair.
Ready?
So, can Paul make a nomination or no? Okay,
Yes, you could.
okay,
Richard's going to.
okay,
Paul can make a nomination.
yeah.
So we're nominating for the position of chair only right now.
Okay, I'll nominate Roy.
Mary Lou? Okay. So I have to read for nominations 3 times, so I'm gonna ask 2 more times. Are there any other nominations for the position of chair? Are there any other nominations for the position of chair? I'm looking at you folks up on the screen, just check it. Okay, so I've asked 3 times, we have a nomination for Roy. Roy, do you accept the nomination for the position of chair?
Yes, I do, thank you.
Okay, so I need to have a motion to close the nomination. I have a mover. Helen, and a seconder, is that Jeannie? And so, there be no other nominations, and you having accepted the nomination, I declare you now the chair and welcome you to in the house.
We don't get 40 minutes, right up the whole meeting. So now we're gonna have a nomination for the vice chair. So I have a nomination for the vice chair. Did we not make a motion that Sally won both elections? No.
So that,
Oh, sorry, I thought.
Yeah.
No, you're not chair on his first move. So, maybe they hear. Yeah. That's great. Does anyone have a nomination for the vice chair?
I'm on it, funky go. You're not getting away that easy.
I need a second or something.
They just,
Thanks. Carl, yes. Again, I'll have to ask 3 times, nomination for the vice chair. 2. Any nomination for the vice chair? That's 3. All do you accept the?
yes.
We have to look at the papers. That's great, thank you.
I'll allow me to see the nomination closed.
Okay, resolved that the nomination for the position of vice chair is closed, so I have a member. Mary Lou and Chuck.
Nope.
All in favor? Yes. I just think it should be, maybe everybody doesn't know, but you can only be chair of Conservation Authority for 2 years. And it wasn't clear to take Paul out. Paul had served just 2 years, and he thanked us, and I think we should be thanking him for doing an excellent job over the past 2 years. Even as a rookie, we all trained him very well. And he did a very good job, but I just wanted to say that it's a convention mandate that should only be 2 years, and I know Roy's going to do a great job. Thank you.
So, yeah, and I'll read.
whatever the proper word is. I will endorse that statement. We can flesh the word. So thank you very much. Okay, so I did put out a call to the current members of the board of director appointees to the Milton Town Museum Advisory Committee, Waterfront Planet Public Advisory Committee, and to the foundation. And all three of the current members, Beth for the museum, and Dina for the Watershed Advisory Committee, and Janet for the foundation. So we have people to sit in those positions unless others were interested in this position. But the key here in those three roles is you're the liaison between this board and those committees, and the foundation, which is in fact a separate organizational corporation. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And then a bit about the rights committee. When you are endorsing people on this committee, you are delegating authority to them under the Conservation Act to act on your behalf. If somebody makes a petition under their permit application and appeals to this rights committee, they are authorized by this board to make a final determination on whether to approve the application and any conditions for that application. So I just want you to clearly understand what you're approving then in terms of approving people to sit on the rights committee and these liaisons with those committees.
Any comments or discussion?
So we do not have anybody as a right now nominated for the rights committee. The prior members, we always consist of the board chair and vice chair, and then we're allowed up to 3 more people to sit on the committee. Now, I think we went the whole of 2024 without the rights committee having to meet, which is a wonderful performance indicator in case you didn't know. But that means we had no appeals. So I'm very pleased to say the rights committee did not have to stand up in 2024 to hear any appeal. So in addition to Richard, I believe Janet was the other, and I don't think we had a third last year. So I would, you can ask it.
Do we need to this one first?
Sure.
So we'll read number 9, go reverse it to long. The board of directors, A, appoint the board members listed in table 3 as amended to the regulations committee to hear applications pursuant to Ontario Regulation 41/24 and MVCA administrative bylaw. And B, direct members of the regulations committee to deliberate on the evidence presented at a hearing and grant or deny such permission on behalf of the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority and provide the applicant with reasons in writing thereof. 2, the board of directors appoint Janet Mason as the board representative on the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority. 3, the board of directors appoint Bev Holmes, the board representative of Mill Cantel Museum Advisory Committee, and the board of directors appoint Dana as the board representative of the Mississippi River Watershed and Rehabilitation Plan and Advisory Committee. I would still need somebody for up here. So we still need 2. Is it 2?
Minimum 2.
For the regulation committee.
So I did not get to reach out to the current members when we were having turnover, and quite frankly, I wasn't sure what was happening at the church. So I guess, Richard, are you interested in remaining on that committee?
I was gonna have you word last year.
Somebody down
So that's Richard. Come on. Who was on? So.
Janet. Janet, just so you know, is somewhere in Europe, climbing the Alps or something. Very cool.
Enter all the line.
Were you on it as well?
I was last year.
Of course you were.
Okay, so Jeff Atkinson will continue. And one more.
Well, ideally one more. But
Ideally, one more, but. Right. No, you're asking a question. I see you put your hand up.
I was going to nominate Taylor.
I'll second that nomination.
It's called the railroad.
we
Okay,
have the chair, the vice chair, Taylor, Richard, and Jeff.
and the board of directors will be spaced.
Correct.
Do I sound to recommend?
Yeah, we
Does-
need a mover.
I need a mover for that, please. Yeah. And Beth Holmes. All in favor? I won't ask you to put your hands up again, hold this,
Yeah.
okay, you want to do your list of everything, or do you-
Just very quickly, so the Conservation Ontario is the effectively an organization that tries to represent the interest and help collaboration amongst conservation authorities across the province. There's 36 in total conservation authorities. And so they meet 4 times annually, and they ask MVCA to forward who has voting rights when they meet, because they actually meet as a board and they adopt policy at that provincial level. So traditionally, we've always had the chair as the first voting person, their backup is the vice chair, and then I'm the third backup. So we don't tend to nominate people, but we nominate names. That said, if anybody is interested in attending, that, you know, we can facilitate that as well. But in terms of voting rights, that's historically the approach our board has taken.
Any comments or discussion? So read the motion. Resolved that the board of directors appoint the following to the Conservation Ontario Council for 2025. The 2025 board chair as voting delegate, the 2025 board vice chair as first alternate, the general manager as the second alternate. We need a mover and a seconder, Kehoe and Taylor. All in favor? 30. Appointment of the 2025 auditor, Sally, or?
If you were happy, our recommendation is Baker Tilly to continue to use them for this year's audit when that time comes.
Any comments or discussion? Then I'll read the motions. Resolved that, oh, sorry, we need a. Someone. Mary Lou. And second. Oh. Okay. I'll read the motion. Resolved that the board of directors appoint the firm of Baker Tilly REO to the authority's auditor of the year. All in favor? And the G, are we at the GM update? Yes, we're at the GM update.
So, there's a couple of big things in the GM update. Of course, the very first item, and it's attached to the GM report, is our 2024 annual report. So I hope that most of you have had the opportunity to flip through it. 2024 was a busy year. Most years are busy years. When you're putting a report like that together, you see how much you're able to accomplish here. And it doesn't even capture, you know, how, quite frankly, of all the various things that staff have worked on. So, and I'd like to thank all for his lovely, introductory comments at the beginning of the annual report, recognizing the tremendous work that staff did in the past year. It's a team sport here at the Conservation Authority, and everybody pulls together, and we accomplish a lot looking that way. And so I'd like to thank everybody who's still in the room, that in the teams they represent, for all the great work that they did in 2024. I'd also like to thank the board, because you're a very supportive board, and you help, enable us to do the work that we do. So thank you, and thank by extension to your municipalities who are our primary funders. So I think it was a good year. The second item on the GM update is an event we're having next month that several of your municipalities are participating in, and we'd like hopefully to see all of the municipalities participate in. We've all received, all of your staff at the various municipalities received an invitation to what we're calling the Parklands and Trail mini conference. And so you might remember last year we did the land conservation and resource strategy, and some of the work we did in the lead up to that was an update to the inventory that had been done back in the 80s of all the resources that are available in our jurisdiction, and brought them up to current. And so in addition to updating the inventory, we also did a survey of people who were visiting various sites and got really interesting feedback, not only about our own properties, but many of your properties, as well as, federal sites, the rail trails, some of the local trails in your municipalities. So for instance, Richard is going to be talking with his colleagues on some of the work they've done on trails. Somebody from CP is going to be speaking about your waterfront network. Somebody from North Frontenac is going to be talking about the Parklands campsite rental program. So I'm looking forward to it because we're going to be able to not only share the results of our survey, but share amongst all of us, member municipalities and the province and the feds and some of the other big landowners, what we're doing and how we can collaborate going forward. And so we have Nick Stowe from the city coming to present, and we're hoping to get somebody from the NCC. So in any event, you might follow up with your staff. We're going to be sending out reminders, but we've already got, good feedback and the agenda's coming together. So looking forward to being able to share and cross-share amongst all of our organizations the good work that folks are doing and what their plans are coming down the pipe. A couple other things I wanted to highlight. Number 8 in the GM update is insurance premium reduction. Yeah, exactly. There's a first in a long while. So it's a reduction of approximately 9% or $12,000 a year. So that was a big coup, and in part this is because the insurance market itself has changed. And in March, our brokers went out to the market just generally to get bids and prices. And whereas the previous time we got 2 bids, I think this time around we had more bids. We're not looking like such a bad investment perhaps for the insurance sector, and there was a bit more competition, so our rates went down. So good news story. I think most of you, I was able to introduce Ben. Oh, Ben, I'm having a problem with your last name.
Dobson.
Dobson, yes. Ben, thank you. So Ben is replacing Matt as our manager of planning and stewardship. Matt's retiring the end of this month, but Ben comes to us currently with 3M down in Brockville, but previously with Tuckaberry, and previously to that with MNR and Watershed Stewardship. So Ben is going to be joining us starting Tuesday after the long weekend. So I just wanted to introduce you and give him the opportunity to, without being on the hot seat, to partake in one of our board meetings. So welcome, Ben.
Thank you very much. Look forward to working with you all. And we're looking forward to getting started next Tuesday.
Yeah. And then the last thing I wanted to highlight from the report is that next week we launched the 50/50 Foundation raffle. So you will be seen in social media, posters and the like. So we were able to secure some pretty spectacular prizes, actually. We were able to get some sponsorships that were able to offset costs. So Ottawa Valley Canoe and Kayak have put forward a canoe package and a kayak package that they jointly funded with the Patterson Group. And then Huntington Properties is providing climate controlled space. I think it's climate controlled for vehicles. So ATVs, boats, camper, that sort of thing. And so those are going to be our early bird prizes. So the raffle will run from April 22nd, it opens, and then I think it's June 10th that it closes, and we'll have those 3 draws in the meantime. So we will be sharing this information with you once it launches, and if there are specific venues or avenues you think we can promote it, because remember this foundation and this fundraising really helps to offset category 3 program costs, right? So to the extent that we're to have successful fundraising through the foundation will help us over time to reduce the amount we're looking to the municipal levy to, fund category 3 programs. So any support you're able to provide in helping to promote the foundation 50/50 would be most appreciated.
Very good.
Well, yes, I thought this was a really good idea. I thought it was also a very fast idea. Have you got any information about how any of us could get tickets to take back to?
Okay.
So how are tickets going to be sold? You only got about 10 days before the first prize from the launch.
So, so we have a consultant working with the foundation with us, and that's what they do. So they said, to limit the amount of time, have, early bird draws to try to keep up the momentum between, the launch and the main draw. And in terms of how people will buy tickets, it's all online. But if you, you can share the QR code that takes them directly to the site where they can buy the tickets. So that's why we'll be sharing with you, and to the extent that you're able to share it with others and encourage them, that would be great. The pricing is very good as far as I'm concerned. I think $100 buys you 250 tickets or something like that. So, I mean, you can really up your odds, and by buying, putting in that kind of money, which I think for a lot of people is the top end. But in any event, does that answer your question, Mary Lou, or did I not cover something?
Yeah, it does.
Amy?
Just a quick question. Number 6, the aerial photography.
Oh, yes.
Is there any way, is that shareable to, or is there any advantage to having that shared with the municipalities? I'm just wondering if that might be kind of neat to have.
Yeah, so when we receive it, it's separate photographs, and we're in the process of knitting it together. Is that not correct, Alex?
Yeah, the conservation authorities has 4,500 approximately tiles, and we spent 2 weeks in stitching it and mosaiking it together. I understand that the photography is free, so anybody in Ontario through open data and your municipalities' GIS departments can request this data and do the same. I don't think it's appropriate that we would give it to you without them asking for it.
What we could do, however, Jeannie, is make them available, make your municipalities aware that we've stitched together that portion that's in our jurisdiction.
Right.
And then your GIS staff could obtain, or, I mean, RBCA's to
What
obtain.
GIS?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I misspoke, Richard, I misspoke. So what I was gonna say, for those of you who have shared jurisdiction with RBCA, between ours and RBCA's, you will have it, and how that's. You don't.
I don't believe so.
But you're mostly in our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
As it relates to outside,
I just think it would be a handy thing to have or have access to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if it's a matter of the township reaching out to you, then I would have them do that.
Tell you what, once we're finished stitching it together and we have it in perhaps a shareable format or
Okay.
format that you can access on our portal, whatever the case may be, we will notify you, and then, as your municipalities are able, whatever the case is, you can access it. But
I'm making a note to follow up with you.
yeah, and I'll follow up with Alex at time
Okay.
meeting, and we'll figure out what makes best sense.
Thank you.
Richard, did you have another question?
No.
That was it?
Yep.
Any other questions for Sally? No? Okay, thank you, Sally. Was that? That was it? Sounds good. You want me to go on that? Right? No. Okay, we're gonna go into camera. So I'll read from the motion. Resolved that the board of directors move into camera session to discuss the following matters. Data relation to employee negotiations. And further be resolved that Sally McIntyre remain in the room and the MVCA staff leave the room.
Oh, yes, we were playing out before.
Does anybody remember who made the motions for those in camera?
I don't think they did take it.
Yeah, we did.
I did.
Yeah,
I made a motion, I seconded it.
Did you say camera? So you did it? Oh, yeah.
No, not moving camera, I moved to that. Usually it was.
Does anybody remember themselves
Making the motion.
I was going.
No, I did.
And then I-
Short memory is needed.
Okay, so,
Well, yeah, okay, Thank
okay,
you.
Colin, good, thank you. Okay, good,
We're both going to write this down, we both this.
yeah, yeah.
So I'll read the motion from the camera. Resulting. Resolved that the board of directors approves the retirement gift for a staff member. And 2, direct staff to review the existing retirement gift policy and make recommendations for consideration by the Finance and Administration Advisory Committee. Have a mover? Stephen? And Ted. Thank you. Okay, for information. Oh, I'm sorry, we need to vote on that. All in favor? Carried.
Okay, so. Okay, so the 2025 work plan and needs assessment. So just a refresher, the needs assessment is like a running list, a wish list, a gap list of everything the organization's.
Yeah.
Oh,
You.
thank you. There we go. So the needs assessment is like a gaps assessment, identifying, you know, it's a running list that every organization has. You pick things off the top and new things come on the bottom. So that's what the needs assessment is. But we prioritize it, doing a risk analysis. And that's what we use to inform the annual work plan. The annual work plan that I tabled here with you is the primary major projects that we're putting forward to make progress, continued progress against our corporate strategic plan. There are a lot of other activities that are going on that we haven't captured there that continue to make, you know, allow us as an organization to improve outcomes, et cetera. The one key thing I want to point out to you is that now that we have this terrific online timesheet system, is we're better able to track how staff are spending their time. And a key message here is that 80% of staff time is generally spent on just rank and file, day in, day out, processing of permits, operation of dams, cleaning of conservation areas, you know, financial accounting, whatever the case may be. So that leaves 20%, and that 80% is category 1. That leaves another 10% we spend on categories 2 and 3 programming, how staff are spending their time. And then it's that remaining 10% of people's time that are working on these change management major initiatives. So that's why when we're developing this list of what our key work plan items are for the year, we have to be very careful in what we're committing to, because we're really only talking about 10% of staff time to be able to make progress on this. Now it's not 10% of every staff person's time, because we have people who are focused on this sort of stuff. But I just wanted to give you a sense of the time allocation that's spent on these special projects that we do every year. So if you look at page 113 of your agenda package, table 1, I highlighted a couple of things, because we're in a very favorable position where we've done almost everything we said we would do in the corporate strategic plan. So there was roughly 30 projects in that 21 to 25 corporate strategic plan. There's only 2 projects outstanding. The first one there you see in red is the open data plan, and we're working on that right now. And the second one on page 114 is the interpretive sign updates at our conservation areas. All other corporate strategic plan initiatives from the current period are completed, which is a major accomplishment that I'd like to thank staff and the board for doing. So the second piece I wanted to highlight on table 1 are the grant funded projects. So we have direction from the board to pursue grants for priority projects, and so we're successful and are moving forward on several of those projects. So the Follow-on River is a new project this year that we have a federal funding from. The Lanark Dam safety enhancements, we have provincial funding, and the Kashwakimak Dam detailed design we also have funding for. So those are projects that are driven
And not just because they need to be done, but we've actually secured money to do them. And so seize the day, make them happen, and we need to prioritize those. So, and then the second piece in this package is the updated needs assessment, and there's two tables. There's the one of all the programs and services, and then there's the one with capital work. And you'll see we have a status column, and I'm very happy to say that many of them are, completed. What we're going to do is when the board adopts the new strategic plan, anything that was completed under the current strategic plan will be removed onto this list, and we'll be starting fresh. So anything that's a work in progress or, moving from the bottom of the list will be starting fresh. But I think this has been a really good tool for us to sort of track our progress against items under the corporate strategic plan and things where we need to be heading going forward. So happy to answer any questions on either the 2025 work plan or the assessment update.
The update, I noticed the water and sewer connection for this building has been moved to high risk. Are we something we're supposed to be concerned about?
So the water tanks that we have here for firefighting have had a long-standing leaking issue, so we have to pump water into them on a regular basis, and at various times they've leaked more or less. And so we did experience a period during the winter months when they seemed to be leaking at a faster rate, so we were concerned about that. But as things stand right now, they seem to be okay. And how much it's tied to the groundwater levels, we're not 100% sure because it's not a direct correlation. But we just need to be cognizant of the fact that they've had long-standing issues. We did have an issue with the septic system over the winter. So if we can get the connection sooner than later, I think we'll all be happy.
Any other questions? No, thank you. Well, again, look at strategic plan.
Okay, so thank you to all of you who responded to the survey. I did want to highlight some of the results from the survey to you that are outlined in the report there. And then get a bit more feedback from you if I can, if people have the time, because I noticed that we're at time right now. So very quickly, on page 126 of your agenda package, where the questions were posed that look at MVCA through different lenses, I did note that the question regarding relationship management, do you think MVCA communicates effectively with your municipality? We had a third of respondents who said somewhat. So I am looking for feedback on that, because if we're not communicating effectively or in the right way or on the right things, it would be really helpful to get some insight to that. So does anybody who felt that way or feels that way, because not all of you completed that survey, but if I could get some feedback on that, that would be helpful, because it would help us understand how we need to move forward on our communications and working relationship with your municipalities. Yes,
I have a question for our staff. Like, I talked to another board member about this survey, and essentially what he said to me was, well, I'm so frustrated with it because I don't know now. And I was thinking, it's really the staff that tends to. So probably if this survey had been sent to our clerks,
yeah,
and asked, then it would come up to council, and we would have asked staff for a report, and then council would have been able to comment on it. So I think maybe that might be a bit of a problem.
So as a follow-up to that, I actually reached out to staff because I'm the newest member of this board. And I went to our clerk and I said, I don't feel that I'm qualified to answer this. She didn't feel that she was qualified because she's a relatively new clerk with us as well. So then I reached out to Allison, who was the board member before I came on board. And Allison didn't want to comment. So I think a lot of people are in the same boat as me. They don't know because I think, to your point, it's more staff that have the interaction. So I think that's an excellent suggestion, is to maybe send this out to staff. And if the clerk doesn't know, then she will go to probably planning, because they're the people that are really connected to a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I did, took the survey with our planner. I don't know whether you, if you were. Her comments were, as far as climate change goes, on that topic, there was a engineer here about 10 years ago that was excellent at communicating what the predictions on climate change and what their effects are going to be on the watershed. But she says it has dropped off, the communication has dropped off in that particular aspect. And she, I guess, I'm into this as well, weren't aware about the tree planting and that we could get involved in that or through the Conservation Authority. And emergency specific training, not sure that the CA involvement and what they provide. So we're unaware of that. That was, I think, one of the questions. Yeah, and going forward, we would like to, we as PayPal would like to see more floodplain mapping. And also climate adaptation going forward with emergency preparedness.
So, the way it was structured around those themes is that I have been asked to look at your strategic plans and to see where there's overlap and where there may be opportunities to collaborate more effectively or to support you in your work. And so the themes that you're seeing, the climate change, the environment, economic diversification, culture and wellness, those were things that were very common with several of your municipal strategic plans. And then these other items off the specifics like the tree planting that you mentioned, these were specific actions in one or more of your corporate strategic plans that we saw, oh, okay, well, there may be a need for this. So one of the things that I noticed going through here was that in some cases, it was evenly split, the number of respondents who felt our current level of involvement was bang on, was 30%, and 30% were looking for more, and 30% were looking for less than none. So, what that, the takeaway for me was in part that, you're all very unique municipalities in your way. You have different geographies, you have different economies, you have different demographics, and you have different needs. And so while thematically, you might be concerned about the same issues, your readiness and ability to meet those needs yourselves or your need to partner with others on any one of those specific needs varies. So when I looked at the results, I didn't find any strong trends on where you want us to go, other than the main theme that came through is stick to your core mandate. That one came through loud and clear, and that's perfectly fair. So when you go to page 129 of the agenda package, I put together draft themes, and the first one is focus on core mandate. And I've identified for you there what core mandate is in the legislation. And that is where we focus our time. And as I mentioned 5 minutes ago, 80% of staff time is spent on category 1 core programs. That's where we do focus our efforts. So then, well, where do we go from there? And so other themes that sort of came out through some of the comments made and reading your strategic plans was to modernize and strengthen our asset management, which I think is a common theme amongst several of the municipalities. Another one though that I had heard a lot of around this table during our previous meetings was enhanced community awareness and understanding of who we are, MVCA, the work we do, why we do it, how we do it, and that sort of thing. And then in this ever-changing environment, and that came out through some of the comments as well, that we, build the organizational excellence or capacity to respond to just ongoing change, which your jurisdictions are also dealing with. I mean, it just seems to be endless at this moment. So I guess I was wondering if, anybody had other key themes of things that they think we need to be focusing on. Like when I read yours, maybe it's about roads, but nothing I'm getting back from people is saying, aside from core mandate, which is focused, but it's also broad, natural hazard risk management. We do several things under that umbrella. I'm looking to you to ask, is there any major gap or need that you see from where you're sitting that you think we need to be focusing on?
So I really come back to the education or the awareness factor, and I think I've said it a couple of times too. And I realize that you have to stick to the core mandate, but there's a lot of people that are not affected by water, that don't have properties on water, really don't. It's not that they don't care, they just don't know. So we have to get those people motivated to care about the water and to support you and your work. So how we make that happen, like public awareness, I don't know, but I think that is an important part that we're missing.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd say the opposite. I don't think you want those people to know, because then they'll find out they're paying for it. And what are they paying for? And that's, I really think you want to be careful. The core mandate is what it is. And once you go over that, the next time you come back to ask for money from municipalities for the number 3 categories, if we've expanded that, the whole thing could, like, I'm just saying that somebody can say, no, we're not funding that. Why are we funding that? And if one municipality does, if one municipality says that you're doing emergency management planning and the province is already mandating us to do it, and they already have a department to take care of it, and we don't want to pay for it, and one municipality says, no, we're not doing category 3 anymore, it'll fall like dominoes. And I just think you want to be very careful what you spend money on above that, what's mandated. Because when they'll have to come back in 4 years or 3 years or whatever it is, and ask municipalities, are you willing to pay for this? And they could just say, why are we paying for that? And it could be different economic times at that point. And I'd still like be very careful about recreation and all those different things.
Would you want to respond to that, Sally? Very fine. Okay, Paul.
Yeah, I would indicate what say the same thing, Richard. It went from my council because I was paying 90% of it. The amount that affected us was very low. But the question was, why are we in there? And basically it was, listen, guys, that's not going to cost us anything. So why not go along? Everybody else is going. But it was a part of the same. Looking at cutting costs everywhere we can.
I push back. I want to push back a little. So I don't know whether we're not talking apples to apples. It's not that I want us to take on a bunch of work that's going to cost extra money. I just want the public to be aware of what the conservation authorities mandate is. There are a lot of people that really are ignorant, that know nothing about the conservation authority or what they do or how it interacts with them, because they're not connected. They're not directly connected. They don't have a water problem. They don't have access to go to a boat launch. They just live on a street in a community that knows nothing. So I am a big proponent of education, making people aware. not to say that, you know, what we, just because people are aware doesn't mean that there's gonna be a cost attached to it. I just think there are so many people that don't know what the Conservation Authority does. So I'm not looking to add more to it. I'm looking to bring category 3 because I get it. Like I say, I'm relatively new, but I get what the province has said. That's not your core mandate. So, you know, like just cool it. I get that. But as I said before, there are a lot of people that haven't got a clue, not a clue what you do here.
Just one comment, I explained the other day to somebody that your property taxes aren't going to the province.
Mhm.
And this is somebody I've known forever, he asked what counts as, I was saying, I wish the province would get started some of the property. tax. No,
Well, yeah, that's
I
really,
mean, you can't educate. Unless they want to be educated.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I agree with the sentiment of not wanting to go out and duplicate what municipalities are doing. But, and it's not part of core mandate, but stewardship and education are still key aspects of conservation, period. They may not be in fashion currently at Queen's Park, but they may be again someday. And, but I think moving forward, because there's a demand for that service, our summer camp programs fills up like rabbit. So there's a need out there. So I would say we're not competing with surrounding municipalities, but to demonstrate that you're adding value to municipal recreation programs, we're partnering with them because we've got the land and we've got the facilities. Would be a way forward as far as the category 3 goes in a legitimate way where a municipality might be willing to continue to pay for it because it offers them value.
So, coming back to my comment earlier, about 80% of staff time is spent on category 1 programs and services on mandate. When we're talking about category 2 and 3, and it's 2 and 3, we're talking about 10% of that time, 10% of our budget. So in the scheme of things, 10% is still cash on the table. I'm not disputing that, but it's also that's the cost. To Jeff's point, our goal is to make those full cost recovery by the end of 4 years, right? The next 4 years. So that maybe doesn't come through in the draft themes and objectives, and it probably should, but it's to make category 3 as much as possible full cost recovery. We might not get to that with stewardship because by default stewardship is a subsidy program where you're helping people do the right thing, as it were, as opposed to providing camps, which is a service, right? But we're certainly, you know, we're aiming in that direction with the MVCA and absolutely the education program. So I'm really wanting to know if there's anything on our core mandate that people think we need to be doing that we're not doing today, and that from where I'm sitting, one of the key things is in the city of Ottawa, we're not known. We're called the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority, and I'm sure if I ask people where the Mississippi River goes, they're going to say in the US of A. It's the continental divide sort of thing, right? They know nothing about this Mississippi River. And yet, as has been commented, 90% of the levy comes from the city of Ottawa, and 50% of our workload is in the city of Ottawa. So, if not more. So I think that we need to enhance our profile and awareness of the organization and the work we're doing in the city of Ottawa, and to make sure that residents know that we are here, the work we're doing on their behalf as a category 1 service, and to help them, you know, navigate these challenges that were mentioned, you know, addressing the future impacts of climate change and all that.
Hi, everyone. I just had a quick thought that I think in general, the city of Ottawa, like from a staff level, is very happy and satisfied with the work that MVCA does and how that interacts with municipal responsibilities. I think it's a really positive relationship, and So that said, Sally, I think you're right. I think the average resident in Ottawa is not very aware of what conservation authorities do. Our municipality interfaces with 3 conservation authorities. I think people who are closer to waterways and conservation areas and areas that the MVCA is very involved in have more awareness, obviously. But um, I guess it may not matter how much awareness people have. I think ultimately, if MVCA is performing its role that the province wants it to and that the municipality is comfortable with, that's the most important thing. You know, the report I was most interested in today, for example, was on the permits and how that relates to one of our key municipal priorities, which is around facilitating housing growth to meet up with housing demand. Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority has been a strong partner in that and facilitating that. That's important. So definitely there's always a need for more awareness, but having a clear understanding of why we're raising awareness is important too. And I think sometimes that those expectations might be misaligned. Hope that makes sense. But basically, in short, good job. Always a need for more awareness. But ultimately, I think it needs to be aligned with what the municipalities need. And from an Ottawa perspective, you're doing well. Thanks.
I think I was gonna say the same thing, but not as politically correct. I just don't, I don't see the importance of telling people what we do. I don't, and it will cost something, and it'll take staff time to do that. And I think you do that when you're misunderstood and people are saying you're not doing a good job. But I think we're doing a good job with our core services. And we can't tell, as Paul said, we can't tell our own residents, they don't know that they're paying taxes to our county, for example. That there's county roads, so that we don't control the ambulances or something like that. There's no way you're going to educate people. You can't shove it down their throat. And I don't think it's that important at this time. I really don't think it matters. Like as long as you get to do what you have to do and do the mandate, I don't think it matters if somebody in Fairhaven knows that you're doing this or who you are. And I don't think they care or ever going to care.
Well, first of all, I think one of the first steps in any marketing is to identify the audience and which of the multiple possible audiences is most important to us. And I think Glenn just answered the question. And from a smaller municipality's point of view, the people that need to know are the staff. Staff in planning, staff in operations. If you're going to increase messaging, find the staff in the municipalities who need to know what to do. And I think we'll be just fine.
Okay, so we have another meeting after this meeting for those.
Like all of us have a.
Yes, all.
There's nothing more.
So, Roberta?
Yes.
Thank you.
Since I have the floor, and you may not appreciate it, but I'm going to just say, and I always blame my ancestors when I'm about to say something that may appear to be controversial. So they have been speaking very loudly, saying, could you please say, as a human being on this planet, it is each and every one of our responsibilities to make each and every one of us aware that we are stewards of the water, the land, and the air. That's their personal responsibilities. Whether this organization has a direct responsibility to the residents of our municipalities, that's obviously very debatable. But as individuals, whatever we can do to make others aware in the small little networks we have, or the larger networks we have, now to be totally honest with you, before things collapse. So I know I'm a doomer and bloomer, but
Is that your great grandmother?
way back further, way back further. Yeah, for thousands of years, people have been the stewards of the land, the water and the air, and that's why we're able to be here. So if we can continue that notion for the next 7 generations, we'll be in really good stead. So with that said, oh, leave me for, all hell breaks loose. I will sing the traveling song, which not everyone's leaving to go somewhere right now, but you will eventually, because you don't live right here at this desk. But also to travel safely to your home here, your heart, your soul, and your spirit. So I'll just sing the traveling song and get the heck out of here before you're like, don't ever have her back again. Jean McGuitch, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Before I read most of the turn, I'd just like to thank Paul and Jeff for doing chair and vice chair for the last 2 years. I look forward to being chair for the next 2 years. So motion to adjourn. Resolve the board of directors annual general meeting is adjourned. And the mover, Paul. Ellen seconded. All in favor? There. You stated. If you have to go, you gotta go.
Sure.
Okay, so we are having a social art protection committee meeting on the forum.
We have four.
A lot of people continue to get out. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4,
We lost 2 on
5,
mine too.
6, 7, 8, 9. Nobody else can leave.
They were gonna call the meeting to order before anyone leaves.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Yeah.
Roll call, we're good.
Yeah.
Any declarations of interest? None. Adoption of the agenda, resolved that the agenda for April 14th, 2025, Mississippi Valley Source Protection Authority meeting be adopted as presented by Nina Mowbray. Jeannie, Dana. All in favor? Approval of the minutes. Resolved that the minutes of the Mississippi Valley Source Protection Authority meeting held February 10th, 2025 be received and approved as printed. I need a mover and a seconder. Jeff. Taylor. And all in favor? Also. And annual progress report. Marita, you did your report first and we'll read the motion, correct?
Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you, Chair Hudel. Good afternoon, members of the board. Today, we're hosting our second Source Protection Authority meeting of 2025 to review 2 staff reports. I will do my best to keep things speedy, so you can get on your way and continue on with your evening. So the first agenda item starts on page 5 of your agenda package. The Clean Water Act requires annual progress reporting be prepared and submitted to the province by May 1st every year. This is our 8th progress report since the Source Protection Plan came into effect in 2015. This year's annual progress report will focus on progress made in 2024. It was brought to the SPC, the Source Protection Committee, on April the 3rd for their consideration, review, and comments. There are 2 documents that we are required to submit: the public-facing annual report, which is posted on our website and shared with our municipal partners. You can find that on page 8 of your agenda package. Additionally, the supplemental form, which is quite lengthy, but that is for the provincial ministry eyes exclusively. So this will be shared with them. In summary, we are required to provide overall grading for the region for achieving Source Protection Plan objectives in 2024. So the province provides us with 3 options to grade ourselves: limited progress, satisfactory, or progressing well. After presenting the sections to the Source Protection Committee, the committee decided that progress for 2024 was progressing well and on target. Any feedback that was received has been incorporated, and now we're seeking direction from the 2 Source Protection Authorities to submit to the province. Thank you for your consideration. That concludes my staff report for this agenda item.
No questions for Marika? Thank you, Marika. So I'll read the motion. Resolved that the Mississippi Valley Source Protection Authority received the 2024 Source Protection Annual Progress Report, publication report, and supplemental form, including the Source Protection Committee comment and grading. And further resolved that the Mississippi Valley Source Protection Authority directs staff to submit the annual progress report, public and supplemental form, to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, and Parks as required by the Clean Water Act and regulations. Someone that moves up. Taylor? Mary Lou seconds. All in favor? Carried. Source Protection Risk Management Official Report for Information. Marika.
Thank you. I can turn everyone's attention to page 42 of your agenda package. The Clean Water Act requires risk management officials submit an annual report that summarizes actions taken by risk management staff each year. Each report applies to the previous calendar year and must be submitted to the Source Protection Authority by February the 1st. There are 2 reports in your agenda package that were received by our office prior to the deadline. The first report addresses threats in the Mississippi and Rideau watersheds outside of the City of Ottawa. The second report addresses threats within the City of Ottawa. In summary, there were no risk management plans or risk management activity reported or completed in the Mississippi Valley Source Protection Area in 2024. However, this is to provide some context. It's okay that there was limited to report on this year. Our risk management staff are in a maintenance phase where they're focusing their attentions on any new activities or new threats. So all outstanding have been, with the exception of 1 risk management plan, have been completed in our region. So there's nothing to report for 2024. Thank you for your time, and that concludes this staff report.
Thank you, Marika. Any questions? Maybe none. We're doing adjournment. Resolved that the Mississippi Valley Source Protection Authority meeting be adjourned. I'm going to do that. Paul and Helen seconds it. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to see